Hey, Slick Talkers, thank you so much for tuning into this podcast. And I know that if you love this show, you'll also love my morning show called Good Morning Hospitality with my co hosts Michael Golden and Brandy Canali, as we spend 30 minutes every Monday morning to dive into the industry's top latest news and trending topics. So go check it out on wherever you find your podcasts at Good Morning Hospitality. And you can live stream with us on Monday mornings on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and of course, YouTube. Now, I hope you enjoy this episode.
Generation of connections. How do you generate emotion in the brain? I caught your attention. Now I need to generate links so that you can absorb the content, which is emotional connections, and it is show that you're taking meaning from the content, not only getting the content thrown at you. Emotions, again, is emotional connection that enforces, and it helps us. If you are emotionally connected to something, you will likely remember it more.
Welcome to Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast where we discuss all things hospitality, hotels, and business. You can find us online at slicktalkthepodcast.com and on every podcast listening platform.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast. I'm your host, Will Slickers, and today we have Patricia from the Hotel.School. I'm so excited to have you on the show. This has been in the making for a while, and it's been great to get to know you and build up the anticipation for this recording. I'm so excited. So it's great to see you.
Great to see you. Thank you so much, Will, for having me. Like I said, I've been a fan of yours since, a common friend of ours told me about you. And I'm so inspired by bright young people like yourself doing what you're doing and bringing hospitality forward and the message, the positive message. And you are always in a good mood. You always have a smile. So I'm very excited to be here. And
Awesome.
We've chatted a lot. For those who are listening, we actually ended up, I think we're now friends because we've chatted so much so I'm very happy to be here.
Yes, we've had so many chats leading up to this. It's been great. But that's what makes a good episode. And I think that's what hospitality, when you're just talking about now, we connect so deeply on a lot of things. So it's really cool to see it shine through, especially with the podcast. So Slick Talkers, all you audience members listening right now, get ready, buckle in your seatbelts. It's gonna be great. So Patricia, let's jump into your background. I want to know, how did you even get started in hotels and just the overall hospitality industry? I want to kind of hear your origin.
Oh, well, if you can't already figure it out, I'm Brazilian. I'm Brazilian born, educated in Switzerland. I was actually one of the lucky ones to be able to come and attend one of the traditional brick and mortar hotel schools. This was 20 years ago.
Okay.
Then straight out of school, actually at the time, schools would come in and recruit students straight from literally the classroom, and Hyatt recruited me. So I left Switzerland to go to Chicago as a management trainee for Park Hyatt Chicago, which was at the time the flagship hotel of their brand. And I stayed with Hyatt for 12 years, with what I thought, it entered in an 18-month contract, stayed for 12 years. Chicago, Paris, I worked for the corporate offices. So from management trainee, I did, of course, sales management, sales executive. I was director of sales on 2 properties. And then my last role working for Hyatt International was as a global director of sales, looking after our luxury segment of all of Europe. So I was based in Paris, looking after all of Europe and our luxury strategy and clients and so on.
Can I ask you really quickly, how do they still recruit straight out of hotel school now, or is that kind of a dying thing, no more recruiting really?
No, I think they do, and I know that after Hyatt, I left to work with a large education group, and they do.
Okay.
This is more organizing fairs. There's a lot more different restrictions now, post many things, including 9/11 and so on, visa restrictions that I think in my time were a little bit easier, and I think today people need to take that into consideration as well.
Gotcha.
On both ends,
Yeah, interesting.
Yes, it's still higher.
Okay, I was gonna say, well, I know. Yeah, I was gonna say, I wonder if they're still going out to recruiting.
Well, I don't know if today, I don't know if in the current situation, but definitely, I think, now speaking in my past experience in terms of being in education, there's no value of a especially hospitality education, if at the end of the day you can't build a career on it. So the schools make proactive effort to be close to the companies that hire.
Yeah, that makes
So
sense. That makes sense.
so after Hyatt, I left, and I left hospitality, pure hospitality, and for love. Like
Mhm.
one of the, why do people leave hospitality? My now husband is Swiss. He was living in Switzerland. I came here on a work trip, and we ended up reconnecting. And so when I decided to move to Switzerland, that was like my priority. And I ended up joining Swiss Education Group, which is the largest education provider of education in hospitality and culinary arts in Switzerland. They have 6 schools. They have 6,500 students a year. So there was a huge learning for me, because it was the first time that I was on the end of basically managing. My responsibilities were included marketing, communications, public relations, and essentially it is, of course, raising awareness and making sure that the school is being talked about, but is also selling. It's actually generating students to a private school, which I didn't even know, as naive as I am, even though I bought it, 20 some years ago. I didn't realize the effort into actually selling it, especially the private schools in Switzerland. So that was my main responsibility, is ultimately to bring students to the schools. And I can say that it's getting harder and harder, because the traditional schools, it's a 6-figure BA that you're purchasing. It's a long-term investment. And yes, and I think they're going through, of course, now already going through a hard time before, and I can't imagine what they're going through right now in terms of capturing students.
I agree. And I was going to ask you, what was like the main selling point, I guess, for you to like sell going to hospitality school? Like, because obviously you have to love, people and like what we do. You and I've had many chats about this already, but I want to know, like, what was your go-to like selling point that you knew you're like, once I tell them this or whatever, they're sold?
Well, I think the how versatile it is. I think the misconception out there is that people study in a hospitality school to work in a hotel and to be, then depending on the country, concierge or GMs or whatever it is. The fact is that many different industries, especially anyone who has a foot into the service or sector, you're talking about luxury watchmakers, banking, they are looking for professionals with those soft skills that I wouldn't say only, but that I think that you can easily find amongst hospitality professionals. The flexibility, the sense of urgency, the sense of service, my God, how many times you check into a hotel and you see a client or guest yelling at the front office person who is being super cordial, super professional, and is probably more qualified, more educated. But I think that doesn't matter, because at the end, a hotelier is there to serve, right? Hospitality is what is it? Hospitality is welcoming strangers. So I think that value of service, of efficiency is very appreciated everywhere else. So that was our first. It's not even a selling point. It's really more educating parents and saying, look, you're not going to pay this much for your child to be a whatever it is that they seem to look with don't respect as much. But anyway, so that was then. But even then, I found that it was a hard sale to make, not because the product wasn't great, but I thought because it was extremely expensive, extremely slow. For as much as hotel schools today are they have a pulse on things, they have advisory boards, they have experts coming in. But how fast can you adapt a curriculum that needs to follow certain academic guidelines so that you receive your academic degree? You can't change it potentially from a semester to the other, but not in the middle of the semester. You can, so I think that the lack of flexibility, the lack of agility, the fact that it's too expensive, and it's really only catering for a little bit of the population of the future, hoteliers, not for everyone. And that started bothering me a little bit, to be honest. So that's almost a segue to my next, to why Hotel.School. So
well, let's just jump right into that. I want to know, so were you doing this when Hotel.School was being developed, or were you kind of already out of the school itself? Kind of like talk us through the transition and the creation phase of Hotel.School, and really for the audience members that don't know what Hotel.School is, what it is, and then of course the creation and the
Of
moments
course.
leading up to it.
Well, Hotel.School to begin with is the next generation hotel school, right? Our mantra is transforming hospitality education. And we're doing this by condensing it's not only me, it's not my idea, my team's not here, so let's pretend it's me and my idea. But the idea is to condense really the most impactful parts of a curriculum of a traditional hotel school using the latest in educational technology, converting this into brain-based, and I'll explain what these are after, but brain-based virtual micro courses. All of this in collaboration with actual recognized industry experts who are working, who are active, who are, who know, they know exactly what skills are in need right now. In essence, I think we're trying to solve a problem. And the problem is there's an increasing alarming, really an amount of skills. There's a skill gap in the sector, and it's constantly changing. So we just need to, we need to be faster, more efficient, and more accessible. And I think that was something that when I left my previous job, Swiss Education Group, I wasn't yet involved in Hotel.School. It was something in my mind, and I thought, I left in February, and I thought something needs to, like, my next job will be in creating something that, more people can afford. It was, I wanted to democratic, and the pandemic just brought this whole thing into center stage. And I think education is definitely one example of a sector that will not go back to what it was before. In my opinion, I think the changes are irreversible. So that's one thing. And then also seeing, this isn't a problem that I read on the newspaper, these are my friends. All of my friends are hospitality people. Like they are the most lovely people in the world, not my friends, but hospitality people. And so, when people talk about, well, if you want to join a project, if you want to build something, it has to be purpose, where you have to have a purpose. And all the marketeers will say, well, you also need to have a persona. And like I said, when you put a face to it, like, the problem to me was clear. The persona, who are we trying to solve, who are we trying to help, that is also clear to me. They have names, so I think in terms of seeing my friends talking about furlough or chômage partiel, which is the term here, and then I also found that there's two different profiles of people, and they're equally struggling, or maybe not equally struggling, but they're struggling in different ways, right? One is the people who were displaced, who lost their jobs. And I think that's obvious for everyone. But the other is, I have friends who are in the industry who are able to keep their jobs, but let's say director of sales, now they have to suddenly to do their own social media campaigns. They have to potentially get a lot deeper into revenue and forecast. I have sales people forecasting themselves, and now forecast for those who are in hotels right now, depending on your market, is being done almost daily. So how do you give these people who are now working and coping with 3 different jobs, and how do you give those skills? They're not going to drop everything and go to a hotel school. They're not going to, so they're also potentially not don't have the time or the funds to invest in, because some of the traditional schools also have the online component to them. But then we're talking about an academic course that was brought into the online world, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that the techniques and the framework is different, but regardless of that, we're talking thousands of dollars. So we're here to solve a problem. So just to clarify, I want to say this, Will, because it's important. I want to say that we are not going against the traditional hotel schools. On the opposite, I have tremendous respect for what they do, but I remain, I want to say it remains a costly long-term investment. It's not for everyone. So we are here to help those who can't afford, And why not in the future even collaborate with a traditional hotel school? And instead of a
Yeah.
3-year diploma, you have a 1.5, and the rest you do online. So just not trying to make enemies out there.
Yes, no, that's a good point. I love that. And well, it just like you bring up so many good things, and I've had many other conversations with a couple other guests on the show. One guy named Tony Matthews. We talked about uh, hotel and hospitality school, just the barrier to entry of, like you said, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then school's a full-time job. If you think about like attending classes and lectures and taking quizzes and all these things, that's a lot of work. And then of course the studying behind the scenes. And honestly, I don't know anybody who can go do that full time without having a job, like without having some kind of income coming in to pay rent or food and gas and insurance and phone and like all these things. And especially if you have a family, like good Lord, like there's so much to cover. And so, finding I think just the overall, like when I think of, I want to go to hospitality school, I never even thought, right out the gate when I thought about going, because I got certified through Cornell, was I'm not going to be in person. I just can't function that way. I can't live in the sense of like not making money to the point of like, I don't know. What I'm trying to say is that you can't go to hotel school and still be in the hotel industry at the same time. I think you just won't be able to manage.
No, I don't think you can, especially because if you assume that you're going to hotel school when you're right out of high school, or a couple of years after, then you are probably in your role in your hotel where you are frontline and where you're doing long shifts. So yes,
And
it's not ideal.
And we both know, like, especially you and I both being in the luxury sector of people call out, you have extra check-ins, and, one day your occupancy is at 15%, and then all of a sudden, halfway through your shift, it rose to 87% because you got a revenue manager in the back who's just going crazy and just doing all sorts of crazy stuff and bringing in the bookings. And boom, now you are swamped with 600 plus check-ins, and you have to stay to help out because what else are you gonna do? So that's what you have to do. So it's just like it's not I love it when I've had people that listen to the show or in my life who are like, I want to go into hospitality management. I'm like, oh yeah, really? All right, let's talk about that. And like, what's your expectation? Like, what do you think it's like? And they're like, well, I just love like the idea of having a set schedule and working the weekday, and like, oh, you should throw those out the window like immediately, like 100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So,
but I have to say, I find in general that hospitality in the past, I want to say 10 years, has gained a bit more of a positive, a lot more of positive attention, tourism everywhere developing as it had never before, and new hotels coming up. Because I remember my first day in college when I was 19 years old, it's like, why are you guys here? And like, I think half of the class raised their hands and say, because I want to open my own hotel. Like, which the teacher at the time pointed out to all of us 19-year-olds that our hotels would just sit one next to the other. Or because people like languages and travel, that's all good, but that's not enough. And I think today there is a more of a informed decision about what you can do with this skills, and so people can kind of it's different. Not everyone's going, I want to open a hotel and I'm here because I love language as well. That's not enough.
Well, like I wrote like a piece a long time ago just talking about if you don't know what you want to do after high school, you need to go work at a hotel, because there's so many departments that you can learn from. There's accounting, which goes into so much other things that opens up a door to 20 other ones. Front desk, which obviously opens up into like revenue management and doing other things, and operations and business. And of course there's valet, which there's a whole business side to that if you go into a luxury side of things. And then of course restaurants.
Oh my God, meeting planning
and sales.
Sales, revenue, PR,
marketing.
There's so much, and I completely agree with you. And by the way, I should say that so many professionals, the majority of professionals in hospitality, did not come from traditional hotel schools, right? And I think that Hotel.School, again, it's serving these people who 10, 20, 15 years ago came into the hospitality as a part-time, or they didn't know what to do, and now they're there. And this is the type of course that they can take that will either really help them either learn new skills that they need to do something different, like I don't know, they're stuck in front office or reservations, but they know they can be a good revenue manager if they were only given the training. Take a short revenue management course. I'm not just trying to sell courses. I really do think, like, our revenue management course, for instance, is done by someone who's a close friend of mine, who happens to be a previous regional vice president for Hyatt Hotels, overseeing. I think he's had so many different regions. So at one point he oversaw all of the US. I don't know how many hotels he's looking after, luxury and lifestyle. I mean, for over 20 years. You spend 3 hours with him lecturing you, and you will learn something. The essentials you will learn. So, I mean, I took the course and I found it fantastic. So.
Well, I also love relating it back to like my first hotel, like first time getting into the industry. The reason why I left that hotel after a couple of years, just because I wasn't able to get the mentorship. Because you know how the hustle bustle is, like you're always so busy, like even on a slow day, there's so much to do. And so like just getting that extra time with your manager or director of rooms, and like trying to get a little bit more knowledge about ADR and revenue management and all this other stuff is really hard. So being able to have that like tool and resource that you guys, like if I was, back in my, 19, 20-year-old age and was like, I want to learn more, I probably would have stayed there if I had Hotel.School. Like, to be honest, like if I had that resource, I'm like, oh, I can pay a couple $100 and just do this like on my own right outside of work. Like, this is great. And I can bring it to work and say, hey, look at what I did outside. And now let me try and apply these. Like, is there a way I can, put my foot in that door? I think
show that I can do this. Yeah,
exactly. And going back into another point, like back in April, May, June, we all had so much time on our hands. Like everyone was still kind of standing still, right? Like trying to figure out how do we function, and then getting to that point of, well, I don't know how to function yet. The world doesn't know how to function yet. So what can I do to better myself for when it's ready? Like when we are ready. And a lot of people actually, I feel like, we're looking for ways to update their skill set. And so I wanted to go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, to your point, education is counter-cyclical, right? It is one of those industries where sectors where people tend to invest in the middle of a crisis, because that it will always bring you fruit. When I say that, though, I am very mindful of the amount of traditional schools, not only in hospitality, they are suffering. I don't see how you could, people can't even, we already lost a year. You're not going to potentially take another year and a half and do an MBA or whatever it is. So I know they're suffering. And again, we are in a bubble, right? We are hoping, and we've seen that the feedback has been amazing, that exactly that is, that people are taking the time to improve on their skills. But when I say time and money, even though we say, people have plenty of time right now, everything is limited, right? We only have 100%. So many hours in a day. So if you can do something that will only give you what you absolutely need to know, and it might not be complete, maybe some people need more, then that's a course for you. That's really what the option for you. And it's the scenarios, where you're saying this is how many times, and I remember this when I was younger, is the hotel people, the Hotel.School graduates coming to hotels, and somehow it's ironic because you already come a little more prepared in terms of seeing theory and all that, but also some doors will open for you because the company is ready to invest in training for you, in further development. I was very lucky. Hyatt is excellent at providing training, and I was one of the lucky ones that was given, because they thought it was worth. But it is true how many of the young people that come in, as a part-time and could have they have the talent, But how do you convince you either are very close friends with someone that will teach you, or, you need to be ultra convincing, or you're there 23 hours a day. So seriously, that's exactly also the type of person who we're trying to reach and say, here, there's a course for you.
For sure. And I love that. And I wanted to touch on two things, but before we get to this next question, for the listeners, can you break down brain-based micro courses? Like, so you've already kind of touched a little bit, but I really want to make sure we hit that topic. Like, what is brain-based micro? Like,
Okay, so to begin, let's start with two. I want to talk about two more terms that everyone's throwing around these days, and it's kind of the thing: upskill and reskill. Right?
Okay.
So upskill is teaching someone additional skills, but in the same line of what they already do. So I don't know, you're teaching a revenue manager a new forecasting system or whatever that is. So you improve their current performance without changing really their career path. That's upskilling. Like, oh, I need to know this to do my current job. And reskilling is what we're talking about before. It's teaching someone a completely new occupation, whereas it's a front office going into revenue, or a revenue going into PR, and so on. So these two words are now we see everywhere: reskilling and upskilling. People need to upskill and or reskill.
Yeah.
And then micro learning, and then brain-based. Okay, brain-based means that we're creating rewarding and engaging experiences that are based on basically a concept called ages. And I will kind of have to read it a bit, because every time I say this, I say it in a different order. But ages is attention. It's how do you capture someone's attention and how do you keep it? Did you know? And I think that every time I see the statistic, it goes down, that currently the experts agree that our attention span of a human is less than 5 seconds.
Yep. It used to be 7.
It used to be 7, and I think it used to be 12. Like a goldfish has a longer attention span than we do. So that's where we come with like, how do you get, like, it's critical to capture that person's attention, right? Generate ages, generation of connections. How do you generate emotion in the brain? I caught your attention. Now I need to generate links so that you can absorb the content, which is emotional connections, and it is making show that you're taking meaning from the content, not only getting the content thrown at you. Emotions, again, is emotional connection that enforces, and it helps us. If you are emotionally connected to something, you will likely remember it more. And spacing, it's giving people the time to learn. And this is where it connects to micro learning. So micro learning is basically creating courses, and this is our courses, taking advantage of keeping in mind that people have short attention spans, that they need something to grab their attention, they need an emotional connection. Our courses are to be taken in 10 to 15 minutes at a time. So the idea is that you're going to do micro lessons. You're not going to sit there for 2 hours, because if you tell someone you have to sit, I've done quite a few online courses that, you start super excited on day 1, and by day like 20, you're like, you want to die. And this is, we want to avoid that. We want to avoid people getting overeager and doing the whole course. You can, if you want to, you probably take you 6, 7, 8 hours, depending if you go through the resources but ideally we're creating it so that you do 10 to 15 minutes at a time, on your way to work, on your commute back, on when you're waiting for someone. That is micro learning. It's short bursts of impactful learning. Short courses.
Yeah. That's
it
good.
Sounds micro learning.
Perfect. Well, no, this is great. And I think you're bringing up a bunch of good stuff, but I want to get into something that you said a little bit earlier, going with obviously the COVID times that we're in. So how has the launch of this been, and how's it played in like the continuing, future that hospitality professionals, have in their career and the industry as well?
Well, I think one thing that we all have in hospitality is faith, right? We know it will all come back. We know the industry will turn around. I think right now we need to be worried about individuals who might not have the same strength or reserves as a huge company, right?
Yeah.
So this is the worry now. But the feedback has been incredible. I think no one cheers you more than your industry friends. So this is what I want to do. This is what I need. I actually have, like I said, the feedback was amazing, but then it's becoming more personal now that people are finding out. Yeah. And I have to say that the other day I got an application for a scholarship, because we're giving away scholarships as well. And it was from a lady, and I hope she won't mind that I'm mentioning her here. Her name is Carmen. She worked with me in Park Hyatt, Chicago, about 15 years ago, 16 years ago. She's a mother of 5 kids. And at the time, she was working overnight while her husband was working the day. And
Wow.
I was, I was the super, fresh management trainee from Hotel.School. So really complete different profiles.
Mhm.
And we were working there overnight, day after day for months, and we became friends. And I remember her always saying, "Oh, you're so lucky you came from a Swiss school and you came, so." And then this woman applies for a scholarship. And when I saw her name, like I had goosebumps everywhere. We now reconnected. We are talking, and she's like, I told my mother about you because she's telling me that she told her mom about what we're doing. She's so happy that she's going to have access to this. She's going to be one of our first Swiss Master Hoteliers. She's going to follow the whole Swiss Master Hotelier program starting this January. And my God, I need another million Carmens, but that is it. That feeling when I thought, oh my God, this is amazing. Like I remember writing to my whole team saying, guys, thank you for letting me be part of it, for letting me do this. And I don't want to sound like I'm preaching, like, obviously this is a for-profit business. I need this to be very transparent.
Yeah.
But it is good for us. It is good for her, and ultimately good for the industry because you're getting more qualified skills. But she's exactly the face of that person who was not given the same training possibilities that I was, who, if she was given training, it was in terms of upskilling, like you need to do this better. Never reskilling, never, oh my God, she knows so much about night audit and reservations, why not revenue? So voila, that's her. And I went completely around what you were asking me, but because I cannot get over this, their story, their faces, right? So we're very excited about that. And how does it play in the continued future of hospitality? I think, it's critical for our survival as a company and where we want to get is really also start offering, is tapping into the business to business sector. I think that's where the real momentum will come, and that's where we can reach more people faster. So we are starting our outreach now and starting to talk to hospitality companies, and they see the value. I just now need all this amazing people. They're so cheerful and so supportive to like open their wallets. But the reception has been overwhelming, fantastic. But
Yeah.
Okay, guys, let's.
I love it. I love it. It's so good. Well, I think like you've touched on so many good points, and the fact of like you guys getting into hotel companies and other companies, I guess a little
Tourism
sneak peek.
boards, governments. I mean, there's so much out there. An example is I won't mention the specific country because I want my competitors to go after, but we all know. But there are countries in certain areas of the globe who are now preparing to become tourist destinations, and they were not. I'm talking about thousands and thousands of people that will need to be trained in the next 3 to 4 years. You cannot send 200,000 people to Switzerland to study.
Yeah.
And you cannot wait 3 years for them to finish, So a lot of potential out there. And yes, it pains me to admit that while this was a horrible year, and I recognize that from my friends, from my family, I haven't seen my family in over, it was also for us an inspiring year, a year of achievements, a year of building this, and in this sense we're quite happy. I'm quite content of where we are, and of course I'm very lucky. First of all, today I'm very lucky to even have a job, but have a job that I love and that I'm passionate about, that I believe in. Yeah, it's a double lottery at a time that I know that I'm, there's less and less people that can say that.
Yeah, no, I agree. You and I both, like, the fact that I'm here today doing this instead of looking for a job on Indeed or something like that right now is pretty incredible. So I feel you. Like, it's just that I think, and this will lead into our last point for this episode, but the industry of hospitality, I feel like, there's hospitality in a lot of different industries and businesses in different ways. We're all in hospitality in some shape or form, but like the lodging,
Absolutely.
travel, destination, tourism, hospitality sector is so freaking resilient. So resilient. Like these are the
Yes.
toughest times. Like we've seen businesses close their doors, we've seen people lose their jobs, like people are dying around the world with this virus, and like we are at the point of, it's like when sink or swim, we freaking swim, like as best as we can. We probably sink a little bit, but we're still floating along, and that's what I love about our industry. and
Me
um
too.
and I think, like I said, this is leading into our last point, but a little sneak peek of something to come out on Hotel.School with vacation rentals. And so, speaking of resilient, one of the most, like, I guess, like leading segments of hospitality right now in the recovery. And so a couple, like you said, a mutual friend introduced us,
Yeah.
Michael Ross from bedroom.com. And then now we also realized from that we have another mutual friend, Simon Lehman from AJL LTR. And so I'm excited to kind of hear about this. Tell us, do you have any like sneak peeks that you can drop on the episode?
Absolutely. Well, so as you rightly said, we are actually building, or we're about to launch in 2 weeks, a full collection. We have 6 courses targeting the professional property manager, so the vacation and short-term rental sector. We have 6 courses in partnership with Simon from AJL Atelier. So we will form his education branch. AJL was looking for an education partner, that is Hotel.School. And we will do 6 courses. Well, the courses are done in business strategy, revenue management, operations for VR. Those, I think, to me, are the 3 basic. Like you need to have, anyone would benefit from this. Marketing for VR, technology, data, distribution. We are extremely excited about this. And if I have time, I will tell you the quick story about this. Is that we thought, okay, we would like, we as Hotel.School, we thought hoteliers should have a better knowledge of what this vertical is, right? Like hoteliers know meetings, we know spa, we know boats, and why don't we know vacation rental as we should, right? And so we said, okay, let's talk to Simon, who is an authority in vacation rental. At least here in Europe, he is. Okay, Simon, a global authority, in case he's listening.
He's listening to this.
I know. We're going to refilm that. Simon, who is an authority. But anyway, we met in Bern, Switzerland's capital, a few months ago. And I said, Simon, let's, what is the course that we need to do for VR? Vacation rental. And he actually started talking about how this whole sector needs to be professionalized. It needs to be leveled, it needs education. And he was telling me how little there is out there in terms of options. I know there's some here and there, but they're either, again, too expensive or not fully developed. And we started talking. What was supposed to be a half hour ended up being hours. And we developed this collection right there. And to me, as I always say, no matter if I'm working in, I don't know, accounting for dolphins tomorrow, I will say I'm a hotelier, because that's what I most recognize myself in and respect, the industry so much. But he was saying how a lot of the people who are in vacation rental today are hoteliers, or, well, there's a mix of everything, apparently. But that some of the tactics and the strategies, especially like revenue management or marketing, you just can't duplicate from hospitality from hotels
100%.
to vacation rentals.
100%.
And even revenue management and the notion of cost and the notion of, a key. You don't have a key. You either, your occupancy is 0 or 100%, right?
Yeah,
if you have a single property. So all of this was like an eye opener for me. Like, oh my God. So the urgency, again, of not only educating this sector, which, it's doing really well. It's I wouldn't say booming. I think nothing is booming this year, but it's doing well compared to others. So there's the whole crew, but also hoteliers who are now either looking for a job or
Mhm.
getting into themselves, getting into this, they have maybe a second property that they want to put out there in the market. So right now with the 6 courses, we're targeting the professional property management manager, someone who kind of has an idea of what it is, and we'll also develop courses down the line for individuals
Yeah.
who are working in complete, like dentists who have their properties and they want to make money out of that, and how to. So we're going to get there later, but we wanted to address the industry first. Very, very excited about that.
Yes, I
And
am very
I'm
excited
happy
about
to
that.
come back with Simon to talk only about it.
Oh yes, you guys are always welcome back, and there's lots in the work, and I love that you said I'm always a hotelier, because I'm like, I feel the same way even though I'm in the vacation rental industry now. But then I was like, people like you are actually the definition of a destinationaire. So it's like that one award I told you guys about. You're wired to create remarkable experiences that are anticipated and shared, whether it's in hotels, a restaurant, or a vacation rental. That's you. I feel that you fit that picture perfectly. So it's exciting to see all of this come together, especially how small our world is, in the sense of like Simon, who's in Switzerland, you're in Switzerland, Michael Ross, who's in Netherlands, and I'm in the US, and we all somehow met virtually, of
Yes.
course, but like, and
Yeah.
it's just super cool. So the crazy things that hospitality brings out and connecting people is pretty incredible.
And if I may, because before we started, we talked, you had asked me another question, which you didn't ask me now, and I wanted to answer this because to me it's so important. You were talking to me about, how does my background in luxury carried into this venture, right? And I want to say this because, again, I cannot ever say enough about the caliber of professionals in hospitality at every level. I'm talking people cleaning floors to people parking cars to people, strategizing growth for, but in terms of how does that luxury, having this background in luxury, it goes into everything that I do in my life. And especially for Hotel.School, there's 2 parts of it. The tangible to me is clear. It's making it a product of quality, making it very professional, making it relevant. But it's more than that. It's not just a commitment to our customer, to the participant, but it's also a commitment to the subject matter expert. Like I said in the beginning, we're recruiting people from the industry, vice presidents of in their fields, or people with a lot of experience, leaders. And I want to make sure that they know that they're giving, they're trusting us to bring their knowledge, to put it into the best possible light, to put them in the best possible light, literally, like we need to light well a video. And I think that commitment to quality, it's my first, it is the base of everything that we do at Hotel.School. Even though we recognize that right now, I think in 2 years we'll look back and say, oh my God, this is what we were releasing, because hopefully we will develop and improve. But there is a commitment to quality. We want it, we pay attention to it. And then intangible, and this is what I would like to finish it, that I learned in the luxury sector, is the generosity. I don't think generosity is in more display as when you do a luxury service properly. Luxury is not about nickeling and diming a client. It's actually the opposite of that. It's annoying, it's short-sighted. It's about being generous with your offer. It's about making it of extremely great value, whatever value means to whatever person. And that's why luxury is very personal. But I think that this generosity in sharing knowledge, in providing service, in treating people with respect, I think that this,
and just connecting, to be honest.
And this is something that you will always see for as long as I am involved in Hotel.School, is making sure that we're living by this.
100%. I love it. Gonna bring a tear to my eye. Well, where can everyone find you? Like, let's give some shameless plugs and shout outs out there for you guys and your team. Where can listeners, go find out more? How can they sign up? Obviously I'm going to link it all, but I just want you to be able to give that opportunity.
Thank you. And I will say I am a startup, so bear with me. Everything I'm saying, I need shout outs. Everything is a shout out. So first of all, you can follow us on social media, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and Facebook. And specifically because every week we're giving away 100 free courses. Every week there's a course of the week, whatever it is. This week is digital transformation. Last week it was delivering value in food and beverage. That's probably not the name of the course. Value creation in food and beverage. So we're giving away 100 free courses. You have to basically, click on the link that is on the social media page that whatever it is that you are. So please follow us on social media. That's the best way to keep updated with everything that we're doing. By January 1st, so we have the individual courses that you can take, like I said, 15 minutes a day, blah, blah, blah. But we also have what we're releasing in January, a Swiss Master Hotelier program. That is a collection of 24 courses to be taken in a year, all designed again by Swiss subject matter experts. So the idea is that the program is very similar to what you would learn in a traditional hotel school's MBA or whatever they call master in, but again, at accessible prices. And we are actually building right now a scholarship fund along with companies and travel associations, because we're giving away 1,000 scholarships ranging from 50 to 100%. Oh, also important shout out. If you are, you have a little over 10 years of experience, you are a well-rounded professional, and you are willing to share your knowledge, reach out to me. I'm sure you will also put my email address, but it's Patricia at Hotel.School. We are always looking for subject matter experts. So happy to talk to whoever is interested. We have a very interesting revenue share model for those willing to teach.
Perfect. Yes. And I will link everything in the show notes. So you guys have heard it here on the podcast first, and then everything will be in the show notes there. So everyone has access to it. And of course, we'll be doing, you'll be featured in our newsletter, and it's just, really good stuff that you're putting out. So I'm excited to continue to share. This is exciting. So Slick Talkers, like, subscribe, share, and check out Hotel.School, and you'll find out all the information there.
Thank you so much for listening. We love your support and want to provide the best we can to all our listeners. So please find us online, social media, and on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Google Podcast.
What's up, everybody? If you've gotten this far into the episode of Slick Talk, the Hospitality Podcast, then you are amazing, and thank you so much for tuning in. We want to send you two places really quickly. If you can, check out the show notes and click the hospitality.fm link. Check out all of our other shows on the podcast network. And don't forget, if you have someone that you want to hear on the podcast, then fill out the guest fill out form so that way we can get them on the show. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy another episode of Slick Talk, the Hospitality Podcast.